So with the V Foundation, it's more of, obviously it's straight, get victory over
Love that.
cancer. And I've worked on a lot of like subcommittees throughout the
Yeah.
country on, athletic
Yeah.
fundraising. So I started my own consulting
Oh,
side
good.
gig. Between
Yeah.
us, it was mainly just because I was getting like some money on the side. So I had to start like
That
an
makes
LLC
sense.
for tax
Yeah. Yeah.
purposes.
100%.
So I don't necessarily am always like, I mean, heck, I'm still working on the website, but I have enough people just from word of
Yeah.
mouth that reach out and they say, "Hey, we're looking at doing
Yeah.
this. Wanted to get your thoughts." I have a really unique background of hitting the former student athlete, coach, admin, so I could kind of pull from different areas. And
Mhm.
so, anyways, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. But I have some of these schools that reach out and they ask
That's
questions.
awesome.
And NIL right now is just
Yeah. Tell us more.
bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I mean, I'll put it this way. When I started fundraising, and you talk about the student athlete
Yeah.
experience and collegiate athletics, and I should have prefaced this with, I think number one, I am absolutely for student athletes and NIL. I think it's a great idea, great for student athletes. I struggled when I was coaching that our star pitcher couldn't put Noel Johnson, USU softball pitcher, All Mountain West, on a poster to charge $10 an
Totally.
hour or something
Yeah.
like that. Like that was
Well,
just,
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Or get
people.
free therapy at like a PT clinic or
Yeah,
something. You
well,
know what I mean?
yes.
Like, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Yeah.
people don't understand the way it was in collegiate athletics, especially with the NCAA. I've got my neighbor used to be the physician on staff for the University of Oklahoma. So not on staff, but during games he would be down there on the deal.
Yeah.
And he said they can't even have any food down there. Maybe a peanut butter sandwich because it's an
It's so
NCAA
bad.
violation.
Yeah.
It was so bad that
It was
they couldn't do
overregulated
anything.
now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yes.
so much.
And so that's
Yes.
why it
And-
seems like the Wild West to people looking from afar. You know what I mean? Right?
Now back in the
So-
80s, down there, it was what kind of car do you want? Um, you know,
Probably. I don't
Pony
know.
Express,
Yeah.
SMU.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly,
Yeah, the
exactly.
glory days.
We've seen so much with the NIL stuff. It's just crazy. It's just it really has become something different. And all the donors, they're having to convince the donors, saying, "Look,
Yeah.
if you don't put the NIL money, you're not going to get the players. They're not going to fill the
Yeah.
stadium up, like football, for example, which pays for most all the rest of the sports."
Yeah.
And it's just a really interesting time.
I think so.
Oh,
And it's in its infancy.
it's completely
Yeah.
different. Completely
Yeah.
different. When I started, even when I was, as recent as like 3 years ago, started with Southern Utah University. I had my hand in everything from revenue generation, fundraising, licensing, trademarks. I remember sitting down, and my first conversation was with a gal who wanted to set up a $100,000 endowment to honor her father, who was a former coach,
Oh,
former
cool.
athlete, and really wanted to reward a small town kid. So we adjusted it per the IRS standards, everything to be kosher. My last week, fast forward, and we're talking within 3 years, less than 3 years, I remember sitting down and a coach asked me how my conversation went with X donor, and then asked, well, hey, do you think that they're going to be able to give money for, to get a smoothie named after them? And then, hey, by the way, were you able to talk to the car dealer about maybe getting something for the backup point guard, quarterback,
Right.
whatever it was?
Right.
I can't remember. And I remember thinking, within a 2.5 year window, I went from that student athlete where the student was greater than the athlete to how do we entice and promote.
Yeah.
And I'm completely fine with NIL.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's keeping a lot of these, even from an NFL standpoint, it's bringing some of these kids back. College basketball, kids who are thinking about, hey, end of first round, second round, is it really worth not getting a guarantee in that second round draft as a second round pick? It's taking them back to school for an extra year, and then they can really kind of get a little bigger evaluation and know what's next step for them. But it's just changed so much that I think, from a collegiate athletic standpoint, they're still in those teenage awkward years of how do we handle it? And the same thing goes for an administrator, because we're not really supposed to get in there and, shake hands, kiss babies, and, hey, by the way, we're going to get in this NIL space, and we really want you to help us out, because that's a violation.
Right.
But there's also not explicit rules state to state that says what you can and can't do. And donors live out of state. So it's
such a rabbit hole right now. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So
you can't
cool.
put the toothpaste
What-
back in the tube now. It's out. You're
Oh,
never going to be able
yeah.
to put this
No,
deal
yeah.
back. There's too much money involved. And, and I think I think eventually, where it's going to go down, we hear about the crazy deals and all the money and stuff, for these elite top superstar athletes and really high profile schools. But I think even the smaller schools is going to make a difference there because,
Oh man,
again,
yeah,
NCAA schools, you're going to a small school, you can't afford to go buy any. You have no money, none.
yeah, yeah.
These kids have, and that's what I don't
No.
think everybody understands. They have, they go, well, they're getting their education. Okay, they are. But the only way they can go get money is to go get a student loan.
Yeah.
On top of that,
Oh,
while they're
that's an
playing ball
interesting.
and doing
That's
everything,
an interesting dichotomy.
have some walking around,
Yeah.
have some walking
Yeah.
around money. That's it.
Yeah.
And so then,
I haven't thought of that.
it just doesn't. It's kind of a crazy thing. They have to
No,
go borrow
and
money
it's not
to
clear
be able to
cut.
live. Yeah.
I think people have a hard time with it because I've talked to a lot of folks that are kind of old guard. I mean that affectionately because I've spoken to friends or uncles or whatever, right?
You're good.
And I just think that I just like it is what it is. It's just kind of an old style of understanding, the landscape. I think people want equity, I guess, with the students, and so a lot of complaints come from well, why do they get the money? Well, because they're different. It's I mean, it's just like it's like I'm so sorry. This guy, I mean, this gentleman's or lady, they do what they do on the field, and I can't do that. So of course I wouldn't be able to understand it. You know what I mean? And
in athletics,
it's not all fair.
Yeah.
It's not all fair.
Well,
I love
athletics-
I love that side of it actually.
Well, the thing is, athletics. This is a fact. You can tell me if you disagree, Casey. I'm going to say what my opinion is, not say it's fact. I'm going to say my opinion. You tell me if I
Let's
agree.
give it to me, Jason.
Without sports, the interest it does, what it generates,
Oh my word!
the money flowing into foundations at universities would be ripped. It'd be catastrophic. So to give an example, in 2000, when the University of Oklahoma won the national
You said this to me
championship,
recently. Yeah.
they had
Flutie effect.
$750 million flowed into that university just like that. And I'm not just talking about the athletic program. I mean, the entire university benefited.
The endowment, everything. Yeah.
Rising tide raises all ships. It benefited every student in the whole population.
Yeah.
Same thing. Now a national championship, I can't even imagine. I don't even know what it does. I know that
The ramifications are so far, right?
well, look at the University of Colorado.
absolutely.
They just went and got a new football coach, and they're already seeing incredible
I love it.
things
I love
happen.
that.
And it's around
Yeah.
sports. So that's why this
The
whole
prime
thing
effects.
ties into it. Yeah. Now, so am I
Casey,
right,
tell-
Casey?
And he hasn't even coached the game yet. Hasn't even
I
coached
know,
the game
right?
yet. And
A
he's
lot
So
of
am I?
interest.
that.
So is my hypothesis right that athletics power
Your
the
hypothesis,
universities?
I wouldn't even call it a
Yeah,
hypothesis.
that's a
That is
fact.
100%
Yeah.
fact. You're hearing it
Yeah.
first, right here.
Hey, yeah,
HGA
we're
fundraising.
HGA fundraising. We're about helping out nonprofits, and we're
All
sitting
we
there.
do is talk about sports.
Yeah,
This
bro.
could
yeah.
be
It's
on
so
Sports
funny.
Center.
It's-
We should be on.
It's all
We should
good.
be on
It's
Sports
all
Center.
good. It's the number one marketing tool for a university.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It really is. And there's studies out there that show, I think it was like 78% of, and we're talking at every level, D1, D2, D3, even included JUCO and NAIA, that let's call it 8. No, let's go down. We'll call it 7 out of 10 times a university or college is listed in a newspaper or the media. It's referenced to a sporting event and or something regarding athletics. It's the number one marketing tool. And you see all these universities, the Flutie effect, bowl games. When TCU played in the Rose Bowl several years ago, they saw a dramatic increase in in Southern California.
Sure, in enrollment. Yeah, sure.
And just little things wherever you go, and even in conference realignment, you're hearing presidents in academia say, "Hey, well, are we going to be able to recruit?" I lovingly refer to them as muggles, non-athlete
Totally.
folk.
Yeah.
We're all
Perfect,
their
exactly.
athletes are all off in their
Yeah.
own world, but we'll be able to recruit where we're playing, where our exposure is, because it naturally works. And on the flip side, going to the fundraising aspect, I love to always, bring this conversation up with people who ask, hey, why are we putting so much money into athletics? Shouldn't we put it in academia? Hey, number one, yes. Number two, we're the number one bill that the university sends because we're paying the scholarship bill. We're also paying for facilities. And, three, what activity or event does the College of Business or the College of the Arts, that brings in 50,000 people 8 times a year, or in basketball, 10 to 15,000 people twice a week for a game. Maybe there's a great play, the Count of Monte Cristo, the musical, or Sound of Music, big fan, but that's not
Apples and
drawing
oranges.
the eyeballs and
Yeah,
the money.
totally. Hey, well, while we're talking about it though, is right now the fact that, I mean, it's obvious you're with the V Foundation. Is right now we're
Correct.
getting into March Madness. Is this a particularly? I would think it would be obvious, but is it a particularly busy time for you? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Embellish a little bit.
sorry,
Casey,
go
do
ahead,
this
Jason.
for us because Trevor and I were joking literally before this on a call, like, talking about the V Foundation. And of course, he's a
That's
former professional.
obvious.
He's a
Yeah.
former college and professional athlete. I'm still an amazing athlete, but not. I don't. But I pay a lot of
You
money.
got
I pay
40
a lot of
time. I
money
think
for
you got a
that.
good 40 time.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a little eligibility left. We'll see about how that
That's
works.
awesome. That's awesome.
But no, tell us about the V Foundation
Yeah.
for those in this world who don't know
Yeah.
and
For those folks who
why
don't
it's
know,
significant.
the three of them that don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the three. We got it down to
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
Trevor.
Yeah. Totally.
We finally got the phone number for that third
Yeah.
person and got it down to
Totally.
two. Unfortunately, they don't they're only giving a couple $1,000, but we'll be okay
Yeah.
on that. No, the V Foundation. I think the biggest thing is our goal is to achieve victory over cancer.
Cool.
Everybody's seen that Coach Valvano SB speech.
Never
Don't
gets
give
old.
up. Don't
Never
ever
gets
give up.
old.
But the crazy thing is, Trevor, it's still applicable
100%.
today.
100%.
I mean, we have three. There's three of us on this call and on the podcast, and I hate to admit it, but out of the three, statistically speaking,
Yeah.
of course,
Will be affected.
one of us is going to be impacted directly by
Yeah.
cancer of some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And our goal at the V Foundation is to achieve victory over
Yeah.
cancer. At the end of the day, my role of working, in fundraising is to put myself out of a job.
Yeah.
Because we want to achieve victory over
Yep.
cancer, and then I'm going to be, applying to a bunch of jobs because we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We were able to raise enough money and fund all-star researchers to achieve victory over cancer. And it's great that we have ESPN as, they were essentially the
Right.
co-founders of the nonprofit. So great brand, great identity, and great bandwidth. And as you said, March Madness, it's a crazy
Yeah.
time. We have coaches, and obviously I'm not going to give
Yeah.
names, but there's a good chunk of collegiate basketball coaches that are involved. And
Cool,
even
man.
he's very public about it. Dick Vitale is
Of course.
involved.
Dickie
and
V.
a great advocate.
Yeah.
Dickie
Who's
V,
who's also a
his
cancer
pediatric
survivor.
cancer.
Yeah.
Who himself just went
Correct.
through it. So.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a
Super
question,
cool.
Casey. So, we're talking about foundations, and really, I want to just ask a question about the athletic world. What is something that everybody gets wrong whenever they're trying to raise money in the athletic world? That you see, that you've been around? Because I mean, we
That's a
have a
good
lot of
question.
people that come to us and they're talking about trying in this, the new world of NIL, or they're somewhat new into the fundraising world and they're trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. What is something that you think they get wrong, and then what's maybe something they get right?
So great question,
so,
Jason.
yeah.
And we're going straight fastball right down the
100%.
middle. Good thing I'm ready. I was ready, sitting dead red on that fastball. One is, I think fundraisers or even any type of in the athletic world are fundraising off of wins and losses. And if you're fundraising, what I mean
Yeah.
by that is, if you're only fundraising on wins and losses, your numbers are going to kind of go wave up and down. You're going to be strictly tied to the results of your coach, your players. Even kind of the community pulse, versus getting to know the student athletes and kind of selling that vision of that you are trying to help them with that student athlete experience. Athletics is visual, vulnerable, and volatile. But from the athletic standpoint, is if you're tied to those wins and losses, again, you're not going to be consistent enough to grow. And I've always said we want to get to a point where we have championship problems.
Yeah.
You got to burn the playbook. Let's get to championship problems. I like to joke that I had a donor who just called me up and was upset about the ketchup and mustard packets.
Okay.
And this is a big time
Yeah.
donor.
So you had to take the call.
Or even, I'm going to
Yeah,
take the
you had
call.
to hear that one.
We're going to solve that problem, but he wanted us to have a meeting, wanted proof that we had a meeting and talk about the concession stand.
Whoa.
Okay, we did that. Wonderful. Or a coach who has issues about the snow and the facilities, or nobody else is getting it cleared out so much, and he doesn't have enough in his budget to get a shovel. I'm sitting there within 2 minutes. I stopped him. I said, Coach, I hear you. I just bought you on Amazon a shovel. I actually bought you two. I will bring one and I will help shovel. What's next? Let's get to the championship problems of where we get to the point where we sold so many season tickets. We're going to March Madness, and because we have so many donors, we've got to be selective. Those are the championship problems, and you can only sell so many season tickets. But philanthropy, there's no ceiling.
I love that.
So moving over to something that they're doing well is that you're starting to see that avenue of the athlete is great. Let's promote them. Let's make their lives a little bit easier. But when you focus on the student, that's the part that plays with the emotional heartstrings. And the universities and athletic departments that are really focusing on, somebody, I had an athlete that was from the middle of Iowa, never left the zip code. And her plan as an athlete was, I'm going to go to the community college down the street, and I'm going to work at the gas station or the convenience store. I'm just going to stay here. It was like pulling teeth to get her and her abilities to come to Logan, Utah to take a scholarship. In fact, she told me that she was just only coming out there because she got a good scholarship and her mom made her. And she said, you got to be out there for 6 months. But long story short, it changed her life. She's now traveling to Europe playing professionally. Yeah. She's got a job as a full-time as a dental assistant. She's happy. But those are the kind of stories where, came up somebody who grew up in a broken home. It happens. And they had first-generation college student. Never would have gone to college if it wasn't for the opportunity to play basketball. Yeah. Now all of a sudden they're a small business owner and they're making six figures. Their children are already, hey, we have plans to make our children, not make our children go to school, but that's an expectation in the family. Yeah. So exactly. So those are the focuses that I think the athletic department and the worlds are doing well, is that they're focusing on the student, the human being, the natural side, not, hey, he's got a great crossover. Have you seen that fadeaway jumper? That's the problem that you're really kind of facing. And then sprinkle on NIL, which we could go down a deep rabbit hole on that one.
Well, it sounds mission focused. I
was going to say, we talk about this all the time about mission first fundraising. Keeping your mission first. This is not an equal transaction where I'm going to get some goods for whatever I'm giving. It's I'm going to get an emotional experience. I'm going to get a participation in it and have that emotion. My return is an emotional return, and I think that's your point is focusing on the student in keeping that mission there, as opposed to, well, if you donate at this level, then you're going to get this seat with this place in line. Right. If you want this suite, because I see all the games that get played, and what I do know about especially large donors, if you offer the deal, they're going to, if you give them put the carrot out there, they're going to say, yeah, I want the carrot too. They may still do it out of the heartstrings. They may do that for the reason, but they're still going to want all that. I used an example one time. Somebody made a large donation to an organization. They were doing, this is back when everything was shut down. And the executive director didn't understand because the donor was upset because she didn't get a cheese tray. I said, because you told her she was going to get it.
Yeah.
She can go buy 100,000 cheese trays. It's not about that. It's that you told her,
you said it,
you were going to give it to her, and she has an expectation that that's going to be met. And
championship problems.
Yeah, precisely.
But she just didn't get it because why? She's so rich. Why does she care about that? I'm like, because you told her.
Yeah, it's perception. It's not the dollar signs. It's the ketchup and mustard packets you were talking
about.
But
my whole point is that's not the reason they have to do it. You don't need to do that most of the time. I mean, there are some, obviously, if you're trying to raise money and there's season tickets involved, I want as good a ticket as I can get. And you can, it's a way to tie to get the higher, instead of being a $5,000 donor, I become a $10,000 donor, or, on up the ladder.
Whatever.
But don't you, is that where you're seeing things really progress to, when people are raising significant money that maybe are not a, Power 5, top 10 contender?
Yeah. And you have different various institutions at various levels, and each state is even different. Each conference is different, and you got to develop that culture of philanthropy. I've even said the old child book. If you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a donor a sideline pass, is what I'd always say. Or on Friday afternoons, I'd always wear a shirt. Laid back, lazy Fridays, casual Fridays. Straight out of comp tickets, because on Friday afternoon, I know who's knocking on the office door. The game's sold out. But if you develop that culture of philanthropy, I think, and you're going to sell. When I say sell, you're going to fundraise naturally when you develop that culture of philanthropy. That regardless if the coach leaves, or regardless if the ticket manager, messed up your season ticket 7 years ago, or if the AD doesn't respond to your emails, if you truly understand who you're giving to and what you're giving to, and on the backside, see the ROI
Mm-hmm.
essentially, they're going to be there forever.
Lives. Yeah.
Instead of them saying, "Hey, I'm going to cancel my season tickets," or "Hey, I'm not going to be a donor to this major gift society," it's instead of me going, "Oh no, how can it?" It's, "Hey, that's great. I just want to let you know the impact."
God, that's good.
But we shouldn't have those conversations because they should know the impact.
Should be
already.
obvious.
They're walking.
Yes.
They're there.
I love that.
And if you give the keys to the castle to the donor that gives $50 a year, again, we love the $50 a year donors. That's wonderful, great. But if you give them the keys to the castle, then all of a sudden you get, why would they give it anymore?
Well, I think it's
you do have to have a little bit of that. Hey, let's go to that next step, and that's why I always say you got to burn the playbook. I mean, so often I think as fundraisers, whether it's V Foundation and being a nonprofit and advancement office at higher ed, we get stuck in a box, and it's like, hey, how do I operate? Being professional, being direct, and I also fundraise a lot of money. There are so many avenues for people to give their discretionary income to. There's thousands, if not millions, of nonprofits. What's going to set you apart different from the basket weaving nonprofit that's down the road? Now, I'm a big fan of the basket weaving.
No, I completely understand.
But
love it.
Yeah, it's what's going to be different, and I know y'all have talked about it.
This is our language. This is our language.
You gotta be different. Going out. My favorite donor stewardship. I have a lot, but I always call it be innovative and do innovative stewardship. Burn the playbook. Let's go get custom bobbleheads for $80, and that's going to be something they're proud of. Let's get them a custom jersey with their name on the back.
Good for you.
Even being at a small institution, at Southern Utah. I went and grabbed a Wyoming grad, and if you ever meet anybody from Wyoming, it is cowboy.
Yeah. Oh, big time.
You go Pokes.
They are the
nothing
Cowboys.
else.
Yeah.
That is. There's branding all over the state.
Yep.
I'll go get them. I'll reach out to somebody in Wyoming, and I did. And they sent me a football helmet from University of Wyoming, and I gave it to the donor. The donor's tearing up when I give it to him. And how weird is that? That I am a Southern Utah University employee at the time, and I'm delivering a football helmet. University of Wyoming. Now, why did I do that? Because he already had his Southern Utah stuff. I know on Saturdays when he comes to the game at SUU, I can look over and see where he sits, and he's watching the Poke game.
Yeah.
He's got two passions. I'm okay with it.
You're talking about relationship.
Yep.
And I think we literally had a call just Saturday. I think it was Friday, and I'm talking to. A fundraiser, and we were talking about communication and stuff like this. And I said, this isn't, she sent an email to me, and I said, this is not something I can answer by email, I don't think. And the whole point was you need to institute a program of gratitude that lets you go deep with these folks. Yeah. And I think what you're saying is that's exactly your point. You're saying we appreciate you being here, and I've got to know you, and I know this is important to you. And was it a big deal? Yeah, you had to make a couple of calls and do some stuff. Yeah. It takes a little bit of effort. Yeah. But what's the return on that relationship that you just created?
Oh, they're never going to forget it. Yeah. That's what it boils down to. I love that. I'm a huge fan of differentiation because it interrupts the loop. And if you can be different and thoughtful, obviously, at the same time, you want to be thoughtful. There has to be thought and intention behind this. But if you can, there is no better time, brother. There has not been a better time to be different and novel, and it gives people that shiny and new feeling. You know what I mean? And they never forget
Absolutely. it. They've all gotten the notebooks. They've all gotten the T-shirts. They've all gotten the swag. Yes. It's like, hey, thanks for that thank you card. I mean, these, depending on the level of donor. Yeah. Again, we want to celebrate every donor as if their dollar that they give is their first dollar they've ever donated to the department or to the advancement office or to the nonprofit. But the biggest thing is, and I say this, and I'm going to cover the V Foundation on this, relationships go beyond the insignia or logo on your chest.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And what you represent and how you have those conversations. And if I'm covering this V Foundation up, if I'm not working for the V Foundation and I'm working for XYZ nonprofit, it doesn't matter if I've already had that relationship or I have a relationship with you and Jason and Trevor. If I have that relationship, it doesn't matter. You know that I'm invested in you. You know I'm invested in who you are as an individual. A lot of these donors could buy anything that they want with their discretionary income.
Yeah.
The things that they can't buy, the thank you handwritten cards from a cancer
Yeah.
survivor or a student athlete, whatever you name it, that's the stuff they can't buy. That's the stuff that they're
That's
going to
the
remember, and
feeling.
that's going to stuff that's going to set you
Yeah.
apart. There's value in
Oh,
differentiation, and you nailed it
so
right there.
huge. So huge.